So the other day, I was playing Cyberpunk. I was just chilling in the Glen apartment and just looking out the window, and in the distance, I saw a little peculiar thing, I guess you could say. There were these cars that are all the way back in the distance, and if you look at them, they're actually like PNGs, they're not cars. But the interesting thing was, they changed the rotation as you look around from different angles. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. What if I can make it in Blender? So today that's what we're gonna be doing. We're gonna replicate that little thing in Blender and see, how we can do it with geometry nodes or with whatever else we can find. So yeah. Let's get into it. Alright, so this setup shouldn't be that complicated. Honestly, it's pretty simple. So first what we need is a little empty object, alright? This empty object could be called controller or something like that. And we also need our camera, obviously. So the controller has to always point towards the camera, right? So we can get that rotation of the controller relative to where the camera is. Or the rotation of the object relative to where the camera is. And for simplicity's sake right now, the camera should also point towards the controller. So it's easier to, see what's happening. And this controller needs to have an empty plane that's parented to it, or at least follows the object's rotation, the controller's rotation. We need to take the rotation of that controller object and clamp it to 0 and 1 so we can get basically like a gradient of how much it's rotated. And then on that empty plane object, we need to have a little sprite sheet, basically that tells how much rotation will be which image. And obviously the gradient has to be stepped, so it can go from point 1 to point 2, point 3, and so on. So that's basically what we're gonna do. That's gonna be a pretty simple setup, but let's start it off, I guess. Alright, let's start off with a little empty object. We'll just do an empty plane axis. Should be enough for now. And let's also get our camera in there. So camera, we got that over there. So this empty has to have a track 2 constraint on it. And we just track it to the camera. And like I said before, for simplicity's sake, let's also add a track 2 on the camera to the empty. So they both just look at each other, basically. This empty needs to have the up axis as the Z and -x as the track 2. So it'll look the same right now, but when we add the plane, it'll look much better, hopefully. Alright, so let's add our plane, I guess. Put the plane here. Let's just take this out for now. And on our plane, let's add a new geometry nodes setup. So we go to geometry node editor, and we got our geometry nodes. Alright, so first off, let's get the rotation working. So let's add a transform geometry. And let's grab our empty object here and put it right there as a object info. And if you're gonna have multiple instances of this, just plug this into the object. But for now, we'll just use this. Let's get our rotation and plug it into here, right? Now, right now, it's probably not gonna do much. Oh, wait, yeah. Right now, it's gonna look like this. Obviously, it's working perfectly. Two things. One, this thing does not actually, have the plane rotated towards the camera. But if you rotate the plane in object mode, it's not gonna work properly because the rotation is gonna mess up with the transform geometry. So let's start off with changing this from a rotation to an Euler. This basically just changes it from rotation, like quaternion, to vector. Rotation to Euler, right here. We plug that in there. Right now it's not going to do anything because this rotation is already in like a vector kind of state. So we do this and we just need to multiply, right? So since we don't want it on the y-axis, would be for this vector math multiply right over here. And we set this to 1 and set this to 1, right? So now this is basically, it's only going to be rotating on the z-axis, I guess you could say. There we go. But now the problem is it doesn't, this thing has to be rotated still, right? Like this. But if you rotate it like that, it's not gonna do that because it's going through local space, I think. So all we need to really do is go here and do an add. Set this to 0, set this to 0, and add this as pi divided by 2. So pi divided by 2. And there we go. We got our plane looking towards the camera. Pretty easily. Alright, so now if you want to move the plane somewhere, it's not gonna, move with this thing, but we can't parent it because then the rotation would be messed up again. So literally just put the rotation into translation, and this thing will now move wherever this is going. It's perfect. Alright, so next step, we need to grab the rotation of this and convert it from the negative pi from pi to 0 and 1. So let's grab the rotation again. Let's just put it somewhere up here. Let's separate XYZ because we only need the Z rotation of this. So we get the Z, put it into a map range, plug it into this map range, and do from negative pi to pi. And this will map it from 0 to 1. Let's just see what it looks like right here. And, oh wait, let's also just pin this right there. So we can just do that. And it looks like this gradient is working perfectly. Yeah, that looks pretty much perfect. Alright, so now that we got our gradient, we need to snap it from 0 and 1. I'm pretty sure there's just a snap. Yeah, a normal math snap node. There we go. And now this, let's do it to 0.1, so it'll snap 10 times. This should just make it so that, yeah, there we go. It'll basically, I think it just takes off any of the values after 0.1. There we go. Looks perfect. Now, if you say you want it at only 2 images, you just put it to 0.5, I think, 0.5. And it should snap from 0 to 0.5. There we go. Alright, so now we, since we're not going to be doing too much here, let's just put this into this. Wait. Or actually, set this to 1, and we can set this to as many as we need. So, for example, if we want 10, right? We can't really see it here, so if we just divide, for now, divide by 10. This will be the value we're using. This I'm just using to visualize so it looks, normal here. This will still snap 10 times. Yep, that looks perfect. And it's much easier value to read than 0.1, 0.5 for 2 and whatnot. So yeah, we got this. We can put this right there. Perfect. Alright, just dissolve that. We don't really need this. That's basically it, actually, for the node setup part. Let's just store the named attribute so we can use it in the material tab. Let's name it something like object rotation. Object rot. Perfect. Alright, let's just clean this up a little bit over here. There we go. Perfect. Rotation and rotation check. You can put that right there. And this is much cleaner than before. Easy to read and pretty clean. So we got this over here, and we got object rot. That's pretty much it for the node tab, or the geometry nodes tab. So let's now go into our shader editor and get this into the material preview. So if we go here, add a new material, and go grab an attribute right there, and plug the color into the base color, right? If we name it, what was it, object rot? There we go. Now, there, it's perfect. It works in the material tab. Okay, since we're just doing normal values, we can just change this from float to int. Float to integer. That would probably be better anyways. And we can change this from float to an integer, so, it's easier to store if you have multiple values. Alright, this should just be the exact same thing now. Yeah. Alright, that looks good to me. Okay, so all we need to do is take this factor, or actually the vector would be better, and plug it into a mapping node, right? Mapping node to the location. And let's just separate XYZ and make sure we got the X, I think. Alright, for now, let's test out with a gradient texture. So we go to gradient texture, right? Go here to color. Yeah, it looks like it's working. It's going 1 exactly. Alright. Let's test it out. Let's see what happens if we test it out. So let's go on to getting the actual images that we want to display on this. So let's move this to a new collection. We'll call it display. Alright, let's just hide this for now and pull this back. Alright, now we just need a model that we want to make sure to rotate and display around. We could just use Suzanne, the monkey right here. Perfect. Alright, let's make this a little, higher poly. Apply that. It's perfect. Alright, since this reminds me a lot of like old Doom style games, let's make it pixelated, just for fun. Alright, so the way we capture the images is we grab a new camera, right? And make sure to reset the rotation and set this as the main camera. Oh wait, set this as the active camera. Perfect. Alright, so now what we do is we grab a curve circle, right? We make sure to bring this as big as we need and go here, add a constraint, and it's the follow path constraint, and we'll just follow the path of this thing. Perfect. And let's also make sure this has a track to and on this object. So we can just move this wherever and we'll track to this. So now we just need to animate the offset basically. Offset is from 0 to 100, right? Okay, so since our thing starts at black and goes this way to go white, I think we have to start from 0 and as many steps as we need, that's where it will end. So since we're doing 10 steps, and make sure to crank this up just in case, since we're doing 10 steps, we'll start at 1 and end at 10. So we go start this, set this to 100, right? Wait, that doesn't make sense. Oh, 100. There we go. And go back to 0. And set this to 0. So every step will be a new image basically, right? Wait, this doesn't look right. Oh, it's a Bezier curve, that's why. Okay, make sure to set this interpolation mode to linear. So it's, yeah, every time it's the exact same distance. Alright, now we just need to render it out basically. Yeah, that looks a bit more noticeable, Yeah, that should be more than enough. Alright, let's render out our whole sequence then, and I'll be back. Alright, that was actually really quick because it's Eevee. Alright, and we got our images here. So if we go here, we got all of them. So every time we rotate, it'll go around like this much. That'll look pretty cool. Alright, so now that we've got this, right, we gotta stitch these images together as a sort of sprite sheet. So what we got here is a little sprite sheet generator. All it really does is it takes the image and it just stitches them together in a row. That's pretty easy. So if you run this right here, we run python main.py, we grab our images folder, put that over there, it'll save it as a sprite sheet right there. And we got our perfect sprite sheet right here. It reminds me of the moon phases image. But yeah, oh, this last one we actually don't need. Wait. So let's just quickly go back here again and remove number 0. Or yeah, number 0, sure. Let's remake our sprite sheet because we don't need 2 of the exact same image, right? Perfect. So that looks better. So it starts off at here, ends off at there. That should be enough. Alright, so we got our sprite sheet here. Let's move this to a new collection. We'll call it image gen. Perfect. So if we disable our image gen and bring this back, right here, instead of this gradient texture, let's bring on our sprite sheet. Put in the vector, put in the image. And let's make sure this is, let's grab our UVs and see what it looks like right now. So UV editor, this is going to be stretched out, right? So if you just do this, unwrap angle based, there we go. Look at that. Each image should be exactly one of these things. So right now, I think the mapping is a little weird. Maybe it's on the Y. That doesn't look like anything.
2,000 years later.
Oh, I know what's happening. I'm dumb. Alright, so we have to separate it and then combine. I forgot that we need to combine it, not separate it. No wonder. Alright, plug that into the X. Now it should be working. There we go. Okay, I think it's not the right direction. Oh, let's also plug this alpha into alpha. There. So now, if we move this thing, Is it? No, it's flipped. So if we just scale this by -1 right here, and we move this around, there we go. That looks really cool. Okay, let's bring this. We don't need this for now. Or actually, since we're not using this, let's put this into the 3D viewport. Press 0 and see what it looks like. Let's also remove all this stuff here. That looks cool. Oh wait. Oh no, we need the alpha. Okay, that's fine. If we just set the roughness to like 1000, there we go. And there we go. It's that simple. That looks cool, doesn't it? The image is rotating. Oh, I think this will look even cooler if there's actually something there to, you know, move off of. So if we add a plane over here, add like a checker texture maybe. Yeah, like that. Put that into the color and just scale it up a little bit. Let's also just make this bigger, scale it up more. And now if we bring this back, and we move it around again. Actually, you know what? I think it's better if we do this here. That looks cool. There we go. That's pretty simple as well, honestly. So if we put this to closest, make it more pixelated. And oh, it won't up. Okay, never mind. All right. There we go. It's that simple, basically. You got the rotating images, and you can change this out with literally anything. You can make trees, you could make a statue maybe, like a museum. This could work. I honestly don't know how practical this is, you know, for actual like Blender stuff, but you could probably do other things with this, you know. It doesn't have to just be rotating images. You could take the same framework and, you know, use it with something else. I don't know. Maybe if you rotate something else happens instead of changing the image. But yeah, that's basically it. We got this rotating images, and it works perfectly when you go up and down. And obviously, if you don't want it to, you know, change like that, if we go back to the geometry nodes, go to the rotation, we can just plug this straight in instead. Whoa. Oh, wait. So if we go here, we can plug this straight into here instead. And if you go up and down, it'll follow you as well. And that works perfect. So yeah, you guys can use this for whatever you need. I think this is pretty cool. You can make different like N64 type scenes, like some old video games, whatever. Like maybe even Doom definitely has this kind of rotation. Wait. Yeah, Doom definitely has this kind of rotation for some of the enemies in the old ones, especially like 1993 Doom, or even Doom 64 I think has that, or like all the old Dooms basically. But yeah, this is perfect, and I hope you guys use this for whatever you need. I hope you found this helpful, and yeah, I don't know what else to say. I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. I hope I have something a bit more than this simple geometry node set up in the next one. But yeah, I'll see you guys later then. Goodbye.